Good morning, sisters and brothers. On this Thursday in the next week in Advent, our topic for conversation this morning is control, or more appropriately, lack thereof. I'm going to share with you a story. Long before I came to Nevada, I got involved through the Episcopal Church that we were part of with the precursor to and still a part of what we know as Family Promise. Family Promise is an organization that provides food and shelter for families who find themselves homeless. I didn't know much about it, but it has really changed who I am and how I relate to people. But that's not the topic of conversation here. I want to share with you some of the learnings that I got. The first is that there is no one path to homelessness. There are as many paths as there are people. There are a lot of different ways that families find themselves in this situation. Many of them they never saw coming. But regardless of how they get to that particular place, they are there. And so they find themselves enrolled in this program, not having a home, not having a place to put their children to bed at night. And so they have to rely upon the kindness of this program and the churches, synagogues and mosques who participate in it and help and care for these folks. And in preparing for spending time with them, I recall talking to the director, and she taught me an incredibly important lesson. What she said to me is this: regardless of how they find themselves here, they are in fact here. And while the ways they found themselves homeless run the entire gamut, there's one common denominator to their current life. That is this: they no longer have control. They don't have control over where they're going to sleep, what they're going to eat, how they're going to care for their children. All of the things that most of us take for granted have been removed from their life. And so these families find themselves in this weird situation, very unfamiliar territory, very scary, but the one thing they all have in common is a lack of control. So, one of the things that the director imparted to me was, one of the best things we can do is gift them any opportunity to feel like they have some control. Give them the ability and the dignity to make as many decisions as they can, and therefore regain a semblance of control over their lives. By now you've probably intuited why I'm telling you that story. For in 2020, in this COVID world in which we are currently living, I think all of us can relate to those folks, to that lack of control, to not having things that we have always taken for granted. And one of the real problems that I'm seeing, that Father Vince is seeing, that Father Chris is seeing as we're doing pastoral work with people, is that many people are feeling that lack of control. And whether they know it or not, it's impacting on how they're living their lives. So this morning I want to talk about a few things that could be of help to all of us when we talk about control, or more appropriately, lack thereof. The very first thing is to recognize it. Now that sounds simplistic, and it sounds like, well, geez, Rick, why would I not recognize it? You would be shocked at how often we don't recognize it. You're feeling a little bit just a little bit uncomfortable, you're feeling kind of rubbed raw, you're feeling kind of worn down by the world, you grumble about the masks, and you grumble about not being able to go see your friends, and you grumble about all of these things, really, if you think about it, come back to the idea that we're not in control. At least we're not in control as much as we are accustomed to being in control. And that just makes us kind of raw and kind of tender to the touch. And one of the most important things we can do is to recognize that. Because when you recognize that you're feeling like you're out of control, then you can start to actually think about some ways to get past that. But if you don't recognize it, it's going to be much more elusive for you. So recognize is the first step. The second step is allow yourself to grieve. We're living through something that is unprecedented, and no one is is accustomed to this. No one is comfortable. We're all feeling some sense of loss. Now, everyone's sense of loss is different, just like everyone's story of homelessness is different. But regardless of what our sense of loss is, we're all feeling like we no longer have control. So give yourself an opportunity to grieve it and say, wow, you know what? That stinks. I hate that I don't have control. I would prefer that things be different, but they're not. And so I'm going to give myself a good, whatever time you need, 10 minutes, half an hour, half a day, and just sit there and grieve it and feel bad about it and kind of wallow in it and let it wash over you, and then let it go. Because it's important that you don't live in that grief of it, that you recognize it, that you grieve over it, and then you kind of let it go. And when you let it go, it doesn't have as much power over you. Third, try to determine what you can learn from it. What does this lack of control have to teach you about yourself, about your relationship with other people, about your relationship with authority, about your relationship with your God? What does this enforced time of lack of control have to teach you? I promise you there are lessons here. There are silver linings in COVID, and one of them is to be forced out of our comfort zone and given an opportunity to examine what that does to us, what that means for us, and how that could change us for the better. Because we will come out of this at some point, and we will begin to develop a new pattern of quote-unquote normal. But what that is will largely be fueled by the learnings that we take from this time of COVID. So recognize your lack of control, grieve it, learn from it, and finally, once you have done that, you will be in a position to gift it to others. What do I mean by that? Recognize, my friends, that you are not the only person on the planet who is suffering from this lack of control, who is raw, who is crispy, who is just done with the whole thing. And that lack of control manifests itself in any number of ways. So think about your relationships with your spouse, your children, your friends, the people that you live with. Think about the people that you interact with, whether you know them or not. One thing I have noticed is that drivers in our current world tend to go from one spectrum to the other. They are either super nice and people are smiling and waving and letting you go forward, or they've become super aggressive and they just want to zoom up and cut in front of you at the stoplight. When you encounter someone like that, my friends, that's a wonderful opportunity to gift them that small sense of control. Rather than respond in kind, give them that gift of the extra 10 seconds out of your life. It costs you very little, but maybe that's what they needed because they're grieving and trying to recognize their lack of control. So gift that back to other people. Just like we do with the folks at Family Promise, we give them as many opportunities to make their own decisions so that they can exercise some control over a life that has become largely out of control. Do that same thing for others. Recognize your lack of control, grieve it, learn from it, and then gift that control back to others. And when you've done that, my friends, you will be a more peaceful person. Okay, since we were talking about Family Promise, I want to let you know that we are currently working with our friends at Family Promise to brighten the Christmas of a family who finds themselves in this homeless situation. And we are accepting gift donations or cash donations, which will be used to purchase gifts for a family with a whole bunch of young children. I'm looking on our webpage, and that's a good point. If you go to our website, nvepiphany.org, there's a link to the list of things those children would like for Christmas. There's a list of clothing sizes and all of that wonderful stuff there. But if all of that seems to be a bridge too far for you in the current world, perhaps the easiest way is to send a little money and we'll do the shopping and the wrapping for you. So you can send a check to Epiphany. Our address is on the website. Or we have a PayPal opportunity. There's a button right on the website which you can support Epiphany, make a donation that way, put that in the memo line, and those funds will go to brighten the Christmas of this family who finds themselves a little bit out of control. And in recognition of what we're all going through and my own family's need to give back, Jen and I are going to start the ball rolling, and as soon as I finish this live stream, I'm going to make a $100 donation to our Family Promise family and get that Christmas a little bit brighter for those folks. That's it, my friends. Recognize your lack of control, grieve it, learn from it, gift it to others, and remember what we hear in Proverbs 29. A fool always loses his temper, but a wise man holds it back. God bless you.